Yep, thank you. So as you know, I'm Mili. I'm basically from Bangladesh, but actually I'm working as a PhD student here in Australia now. And I moved here in last August. But this is my personal research, not PhD, work. So that's why, I'm not giving that identity. Today I'm presenting on family language policies, like Bangladeshi immigrant parents' perceptions of maintaining children's heritage language. After coming to Australia, it just came to my mind, but some of my peers are working on this area. So I talked to some of my community people, the way they were maintaining their heritage language and this. So today's agenda include introduction, like I will look at the theories and study methods, results and recommendations. Is it not moving? Okay. So to introduce the research, we have to look at some recent literature that they were talking about, like how do this, these family language policies really is a result of conflict or is a result of differences. So the way we see like minority languages are usually perceived as a deficiency, but I don't want to call this as a deficiency, like this is a difference. And that's why it might not be conflict between this state-controlled educational language or national language policy with this immigrant family language, heritage languages or maintenance or policy, because, some people are adapted to this language. Like I am adapted to use English at home and everywhere for work while I'm in Bangladesh. But when I'm in Australia, I do it in the similar way. So I don't see a conflict, but some families, those who are really immigrant and non-academic people might have experiencing that conflict. And these families, usually they use their ethnic cultural patterns and they follow this to maintain it, and which creates problems with acculturation or in unfamiliar environment. But some people might not feel that. So that's why all are actually possibilities. But parents' language policy and grandparents or significant others really play a considerable role in immigrant children's heritage language, as I experienced with my child and other family members living in Australia. And social identity maintenance by translanguaging and informally teaching this ethnic language. So we really do this, but still I find like our personal attitudes or beliefs has some definitely create some impact on our practices or the outcome that we get with our children's heritage language maintenance, or do they have the this language development skills. So the theories that support my study is first, there are three frameworks altogether. So first, transnationalism that we have already heard about. So the way I look at this theory is the types of and the perspectives of transnationalism that really connect to family language policies. So although they maintain multi-stranded social relationship, linking together the settlement societies and the host country societies, but still there are two perspectives. Like one is very materialistic, like objective or behavioral transnationalism that really talk about visiting the country of origin or sending goods or remittance. But that's the kind of relationship, although looks like materialistic, but subjective and attitudinal transnationalism that really connects to language and society is an emotional tie and with the country of origin and one sense of belonging and sense of home. We feel to be like home here. And that's why probably we connect to the country, and at the same time, we want to bring those things back here. And the other two perspectives on transnationalism that inform my study is ways of being and ways of belonging. So we are being here in the settlement country, like such as participation in certain organizations or institutions or our religious affiliations. We maintain it with our community to feel that we are home. And at the same time, like having an emotional connections with homeland through memory, nostalgia, or imagination, those really connect to language and culture and our childhood memories and our bringing up. So these really have some conscious involvement and affiliation with a particular group, and we enact and become aware of this particular ethnic identity. So we practice this very consciously, but still we do have some mindset and some beliefs like which inform this framework, like family language policy. And in my family, usually I do have some ideologies like regarding maintaining my heritage language. So, and this framework has three aspects, like language ideologies and beliefs that the parents usually have regarding their children's language development and language practices that they believe to do and act and they enact. And the final one is language management, the way they interact and they choose to interact with different communities using different languages. So first, the ideologies really connect to the values of majority and minority language differences, the way they see it, and the significance of minority language maintenance if you think it is needed and it's important to do it. And language practices really connect to their choice of languages and possible patterns of language uses that they choose to use with family members or outside community or other people's preferences or other people's ability to understand. And language management directly connect to their manipulation of the linguistic situation, like the way they want their children to use language or the way they do by themselves. So Polski's language policy model really have three elements: this beliefs, practice, and management. So I believe that our beliefs impact our practices, which has a direct or indirect outcome with our children's language development. And that's why I had to look at this framework, like where beliefs, practice, and outcomes interact at the same time. And our parents, like us, parental beliefs or attitudes impact parental linguistic choices and interaction strategies, like whether they will be speaking their home language to the children or to the outside community or the children of those community people, that matters. And whether they believe that they should be speaking home language or they should be speaking dominant language to other people. And this is the way their interaction strategy really decides their children's language development, whether they will be bilingual or they will be monolingual in a similar way. So drawing on these two theories, my research really focuses on parents' perceived value of preserving heritage language and the essential steps that they do to maintain that. So two research questions will be answered through my data, like what are Bangladeshi immigrant parents' beliefs and practices of teaching ethnic language to their children in a transnational context, I mean by they are immigrant, and how do the parents perceive the need for their children heritage language maintenance and support the process in immigrant countries. So the methodology I used for this study was, the nature of the research is qualitative case study, and participants were 4 Bangladeshi immigrant parents living in Australia, Canada, and Denmark for at least 8 years. And semi-structured formal and informal interviews were used via Zoom because I was talking to them formally first and I needed some more clarification. So I used informal a phone call. And this is supported by literature because in family language policy studies really use both formal and informal interview structures. And data were analyzed thematically, like using content analysis, and the framework that support data analysis was like parental beliefs and children's bilingual model. So to look at the findings, first, I found parental beliefs, ideologies, and attitudes. The first mother, the Australian mother, was talking to me like she was telling, since it is our language and we want them to know it, and with any proficiency level, so she has no persuasion or manipulation on the level of proficiency, like he or she should be very good at this language or accustomed to this language. No, she has some neutral attitude, like it is like an extracurricular, so no rigorous learning or performance is needed since they do not need it for academic or professional purposes. And Bengali culture teaching is a reason to teach this language because this community is booming here in Sydney, and that's why they might need to learn from them and learn for them to communicate with them. So this is an attitude. And the other mother, she is also from Australia. She was a bit, more integratively connected to this language learning and more manipulative. So she said they should speak Bangla to communicate with the elder family members. My children still see everything in my eyes, and after some years, they will be dependent. So before becoming independent, she wants them to internalize her culture and language as much as possible. And learning a language can add to skills besides building relationships. So there are something that's really outside family relationships or the way we see the family, beyond family, like she believes that this language can help them to understand other languages and cultures, and this is an integration. But fathers have a bit different attitude, like a bit possessive, and they have some other, righteousness, like this is her mother language and first language, very different. and she has to know it for developing bonding with the relatives. So that's the only purpose, to keep the family relationship and maintaining at the culture. And the Danish father was talking about like first language, and she needs to use Bangla, not to forget it, a bit more manipulative, and she should know the language because it is our language and it develops relationship and communications with us, and that's a resource. So second mother and the second father, both they have similar ideas, and they are a bit, more concerned with learning the language. They are not neutral that, okay, they can do it fine, or they cannot do it, that's okay. So when I was analyzing their practices, I found two aspects, like some common aspects that all the parents follow, and some particular aspects that two types of parents follow. So mother one and father one maintain Bangla class, right, irregularly, and to have extra language input beyond their parental effort, because perhaps they do not have enough time to give. So mothers are really concerned with practices, while fathers are concerned with the identity perceptions through language, so language practice. So those parents who really, maintain Bangla class cannot maintain, but they rely on Bangla class because they cannot give enough input, but they want them to learn the language. And second mother send them to singing school to the so the rhythm enhances interest in the language. That's interesting because that's really put forward an idea of using singing or songs to teach language that we usually do, but really for those immigrant children, this really helps. And I tried with my son too, and it really worked. So she was doing that. She was a bit more active to teach the language, and brings Bangla, second mother and second father brings Bangla book from Bangladesh to support literacy building. So that's extra effort, and that really worked for them. And first mother and first father really live in Asian areas, and children mostly attend Asian teachers and students. So they really depend on community and school to teach the heritage language, but perhaps they might not have some additional effort. And finally, second mother and second father travel to Bangladesh every year to teach the language and culture. So that's the transnationalist attitude to teach heritage language or to maintain it. So that really requires more effort and time and money. So they did it. And the common practices among all the parents were like having Bengali friends or Asian community to be close to heritage culture, and attending community programs like including wedding parties or other social gatherings, in both home country and immigrant countries. So these are the common practice, and practicing the culture so the children learn automatically. So when you do, children usually learn better. And speaking Bangla to children, although practicing English at home is needed for job purposes, so they would sacrifice for this. And these are different types of practices from parents. Some parents are really believe more in practicing the language to teach them. So to look at the finding, it was really interesting. I found positive relationship between the beliefs and practices and the outcome. Like those who believe more possessively with more they manipulate learning the language or teaching the language, definitely they do have more positive outcomes. Like first mother was a bit neutral regarding their attitudes. So like if they can do it, that's good. Otherwise, I cannot help. Like something like this. So that mother has two children, and one of them migrated at 7 when she was 7 years old, but she can speak and read Bengali, but basically lack of practice makes her forget the language. Almost she is forgetting. And the second child was also born in Bangladesh, but he has difficulties in speaking and cannot read. That means they didn't develop this second language.
You have 3 more minutes.
Sorry, am I out of time?
No, 3 minutes.
Okay, so second mother had 2 children. Like definitely both of them are born in Australia, and surprisingly they can speak and read the language, and although they do have some accented pronunciation, but they can sing Bangla songs and understand and speak Bangla dialects even, because they learn it from Bangladesh. So that's the direct impact of those additional effort that their mother took. And father one, the same outcome, like he had some neutral attitudes, like he was depending on community and schools, and that's why his daughter forgot Bangla already after coming to Canada. But the boy was born in Canada, now speak Bangla a bit because he has to speak to his cousin who has recently come from Bangladesh. And second father, like who is living in Denmark, definitely he has some extra input with books and traveling to Bangladesh. Definitely her daughter was born in Denmark, but still can speak Bangla fluently and correctly. And she has difficulties only with long words or sentences. So these are the direct outcome of their beliefs, positive beliefs and attitudes and practices, and on their language development outcomes. So if we really want, we can make it. So to conclude and wrap up my research, I want to say that like they do have different reasons to preserve a heritage language as the way I do, like preserving culture and or mother tongue or family relationships or additional language skills. But definitely they do have some sacrifices and they have some conflicting use, beliefs and attitudes. They have to trans-language for sure. And that's the reality. Like trans-languaging is a reality with the immigrant people, like they have transnational identities and trans language, and at the same time, like trans perceptions regarding their own needs and language needs and cultural needs. So they speak different languages in varied contexts. That's very critical and definitely very complex to choose the language for children's development and for their social relationships, community relationships, or other professional relationships. So my conclusion really calls for a better understanding of the challenges that the immigrant people go through regarding language choices, and including parental neutral attitudes, those who really believe in dominant language learning and not maintaining heritage language. But definitely society has something to offer to these children who wants to develop their heritage language, and schools too. Like we can give them something through many cultural manifestations and other things. And that's all from me today. And these are the references that I used for my presentations. And thank you everyone if you have any questions.
Thank you so much.